Welcome back to Silent Sales Machine Radio. We are your co-hosts. I'm Brian.
And I'm Robin Joy.
And this is Coach's Corner.
Hey, Brian.
Hey.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going real well. How about you?
I'm doing great.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. You were telling me just recently about a client that you had in coaching that you wanted to do it exactly like you do.
Mm-hmm.
You wanted every little step that you take, which I can understand that.
Yeah, for sure. Because if you could just copy something that already works, right? This is the whole, what we see a lot in business, take what works, improve upon it, and go forward.
Yeah, and we try to make it as step-by-step as we can, at least in the beginning.
So when I started drilling into this, like what they were really talking about, the explanation that I got was, well, you did this, and then you did that, and then you did the other thing, and it was like a very rigid set of steps that were being applied, right? At least he interpreted that as being rigid. And I just thought it was a great talking point because what happens a lot of the times is people think it's actually a blueprint. And let's just talk about here the difference between what we do when we talk about frameworks and versus blueprints. Okay, a blueprint, having built a home before, like from the ground up.
Yes, you have.
Not that I never swung a hammer, but I did from design to finish, right? Yes. I was right there making sure everything got done, right? There is a blueprint for that, right? The blueprint has to be approved by the architect. It has to be approved by the city. It has to pass all of these, tests and things like that.
And you have to do it exactly the way you said you were going to do it.
Exactly.
You can't make adjustments.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, without getting them refiled.
Right, without having to, refile and get it reapproved and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I have the same thing when people ask me about the 3-step check and they say, oh, well, what do you use, the buy box or the FBA seller price? Or what if there's no buy box? And my answer is, similar. It's not a scientific process. If you do these exact steps, it will turn out the way you want it to.
Right.
I wish it was, because I would tell you what those steps were, and I would use them myself.
It's not like a spell or an incantation that if you do it right, it's going to happen.
Right, exactly. So what I try to help them with is understanding, why are we looking at this historical pricing? What am I trying to get? I'm trying to get some evidence that I'm not going to just light a $20 bill on fire if I test this, right? That's what I'm trying to do. So you got to experiment a little bit to see what tells you that, when you should kind of adjust it or massage it, according to that. But I get what you're saying. So
so it really isn't a blueprint, so to speak. It is more of a sandbox or a framework. Okay, and I think specifically
kind of guardrails.
Right, especially for newer sellers, it's guardrails. Because the last place that you want to be is where everything is so rigid and then it doesn't work for you and you're like, okay, well, this just doesn't work at all, which is not the case.
I did everything you told me to exactly to the letter, and it didn't turn out the way I wanted to, so I'm disappointed. I get that if that's the way you're looking at it.
It reminds me of back in the day, maybe in the first 12 months that we were married, we were doing a multi-level marketing thing.
Yes.
And one of my upline leaders, was doing the presentation. And I was studying that because I was going to go do the presentation for other people. And in this case, I had to record it and then go sit down with this upline leader and review it.
Okay.
And so I studied what he did like to a T.
Yeah.
And I went and I did the presentation and I nailed it. Like it was exactly like he did it. And I'm going to sit down with him. His name was Mark. And we're playing back the thing. And we get about halfway through. And he said, Brian, this sounds exactly like the way I do it. And I said, well, yeah, I thought that was the deal. It's supposed to be exactly, because you're good. I want to do it exactly like you, right?
You found some success.
Yeah. And he said, here's the thing. It works for me because it's my story. It's my approach.
Yeah.
You have to apply this to yourself. Right. You're not going to be convincing, compelling, persuasive if you're telling somebody else's story the whole time.
Right.
You tell your own story.
Tell your own story. I love that. That's a great way to say it. And when you're adapting these things to you, you should stay within the guardrails in the beginning, because you really don't know what's out there, and especially if your coach is walking you along. But eventually, when you find some success, you're going to bust out of those guardrails.
Yeah.
And But while you're there, you have to start making it your story, or you'll never be able to bust out of those guardrails. And you'll always be this, this narrow little path that we started on, and you won't go any further. So I really like the way you say it. Make it your story.
Your story. So when we talk about things like the pre-flight inspection, the 3-step check, and the 4-week test, these are frameworks, and they're meant to be adjusted, right? For you, based on what your budget is, based on what your availability, your bandwidth is, based on what
different backgrounds,
your business model is.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So, yeah, it's just like it's nothing here is set in stone. And we all know that we're pivoting. It's like maintaining an Amazon FBA business or FBM business even. It's a constant pivot, right?
Yes.
We are adjusting to, we used to say
just like any other business.
You're right. It's just like any other business.
It's not any different than any other business.
Right. The market changes.
It does.
And it's not Amazon specifically. Amazon's reacting to what's happening in the market. And then we have to react to what Amazon is doing. And so I don't hold it against Amazon. Could they do a little bit better at naming things and stop calling them fees and convenience costs and all these things? Sure. But the truth is, right, we all have to adjust all the time. And it doesn't matter what the business is. And so I could hold it against Amazon and be angry at them, or I could just, make the adjustment.
Yeah. Yeah. Gratefulness is much more fun than,
it is.
Than anger and resentment. Yeah. And I think that it's important that we do write our own story, because Jim's going to interview us one day on the podcast on Silent Sales Machine Radio, and we're going to want to hear that story. I don't want to hear my story. I want to hear your story.
That's right.
I work with some amazing people, and it just is constantly amazing me how these people are managing to get done what they get done, to find the success in spite of all the other things going on in their lives. I feel like I've got nothing compared to some of the people that I'm working with, and they still find a way to find success. And it's just beautiful to me. And we want to hear their stories.
A lot of people take, they're like challenge accepted.
Yes.
Right? A lot of people are just up for the challenge.
Yep.
And that kind of leads into our next topic here, which is a lot of people are not looking for the challenge. They're looking for basically what I was talking about. I did all this 30 some odd years ago of, okay, let me just do it exactly like you, because that works.
Yeah.
Where's the challenge there, right? I could replicate that pretty darn well. But it did get me thinking about how a lot of the things that we need to do in this business are not necessarily all that savory to us. And it depends on the individual.
Well, and they're tougher up front before we find efficiencies. And
they can be.
Yeah.
Like, I know one of your favorite phrases lately is it's front loaded.
It's front loaded. Right? It just is. Yeah.
Well,
but that means it's going to get better. So
right.
Just know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, there was something that we were talking about recently about the sort of naive optimism that you run into when you're like before you actually start, and then you get the realistic
understanding,
more realistic expectations, right? You can be pessimistic about it, or you can say, okay, now I know what needs to happen. Now I'm going to go
now
after
I've chosen that it's going to be worth it to me, so I'm going to commit to getting it done.
And this is off script, obviously. But we did
have this conversation.
We did yesterday. Have this conversation, and I think it really is important, because I know I felt exactly the same way, right? I know I was like, I can just sell things on Amazon. This is going to be awesome. Let's go do that.
That's great. People are doing this, making money.
Yep. You find things, you buy low, you sell high, right?
Like you do, right?
Yep.
And conceptually, that is true. And most anybody can do it, in my opinion. But once you get in there, you'd get more of a realistic perspective.
Yep.
And now you know exactly some of the things that you're going to have to overcome. And then you just commit and you do them. And we see people doing it every day. We also see people who've run up to an obstacle comes to them, and they can't get past it. And if they can't get past it, they're done. So overcoming those obstacles is the deal. Kind of like when you used to run the Garden of the Gods 10 mile in the mountains. It was, tell us about that.
So the Garden of the Gods 10-mile race.
Yeah.
Garden of the Gods, like one of the most beautiful places in Colorado, in our hometown, and it's in the foothills. And it has like if anyone has ever seen Red Rocks Amphitheater, it has those kind of rocks in it, and they're kind of just popping up out of the ground in all these weird locations. And
that's
some
where
of them
the kissing camels
look like animals,
and they call it,
the bounce rock. And, there's all kinds of like really cool
great
things.
photo opportunities.
You drive through there. It's meant for car tour, but they close
and hiking.
Yeah, and you can hike in there, but they close down the automobile access on the day that they're doing these races, and then all the runners are on the road. And so you're just dealing with running traffic, not auto traffic. Well, anyway, because it's in the foothills, there are a lot of hills.
Yeah.
And there are some long hills in there. And,
are there?
Yeah. And I remember thinking, like, you know, even the night before, I knew I was going out for a training run at 5 or 5:30. I'm like, oh, that hill is going to kill me. I need to come up with some, mind game to help me be distracted so I'm not focused on how bad that hill hurts me when I'm running up it, right?
Right.
And you can do some things like...
You could avoid the hill.
You could avoid the hill,
but
yes.
then you can't do the race.
Well, it's part of the race, right? You can't avoid the hill and finish the race. And that sort of thing applies to the Amazon business, I believe, as well, right? So what is your hill? What is your hill? We never actually had this conversation, but what would you say one of your hills is?
Oh, gosh. One of my hills. Oh, I like sourcing. So a lot of people, I think, would say sourcing.
Yeah, sourcing was a big old hill for me, too.
Yeah. In the beginning, it really was. It really was. I think that, gosh, I don't know.
I know what one of your hills is.
What is it? Help me out.
One of your hills is managing our team.
Oh, yeah.
You just don't like doing the team management.
I don't. Yeah. They need things and they do a great job. Yeah. It's tough for me to carve out the time that they really deserve. So
yeah, I think that's fair. And so then it never gets quite the attention that, I mean, it does eventually get the attention that it needs, but that's your hill. That's one of your hills.
That's one of my hills, for sure.
I have one of your down hills, because there's the upside of the hill. I mean, the hill is the upside. The downside, or the good part, maybe the hill is the downside. But when you get to the top of the hill,
frequency.
Yeah. you have some, you usually have some downhill for recovery.
Yes.
And so the downhill for me in our business is like prepping. Like we don't really prep stuff anymore, but prepping was something that I could do. I couldn't have my hands tied behind my back, but I could turn on a podcast. I could it was almost cathartic.
Have a conversation
for my day, where I could just not even think. Like, thoughts happen naturally when I'm focused on doing these other
and
things.
we don't do any of that.
And it's not really a thinker to prep things, right? You're like, polybag, tape, bubble wrap,
especially with the same
paper.
things over and over and over.
It's now the prepping part I'm talking about. Now, when you got to turn around and figure out where it's going and putting it in a box, that can be a little more challenging. Ask us how we know, but
yes.
But there's the downhill in the business too.
Yeah.
And thankfully, when you're running, when there's an uphill, there's a downhill. Now, it doesn't always come right away. Sometimes there's uphill and then flat, and then maybe a little more uphill and whatever. But if the uphill for you, and I would say the uphill for most people in this business, is the sourcing part of it.
Yeah. Well, at least when they're getting started, for sure.
Yeah.
I tell you, one of the things I can relate to that now that I've had a chance he sprung that on me. But one thing that is kind of, it seems like it's going to be uphill to me is in the morning when I have a coaching day and I have coaching clients stacked all day. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to get anything done but coaching today. And I prepare myself. And then what happens by the time I get done that day?
Oh, I get attacked when I walk in the door. You're like, I talked to so-and-so. These are your best days.
These are my best days. And so I've learned that, I get in there and do the thing. But once I've got somebody on the phone with me, like, we're there. And we are learning things and figuring things out. And talking about issues that come up. And
Mm.
I just love it so much. It just makes me happy. So thank you to everybody who coaches with me and gives me such a wonderful day, because I mean, you think we're making this up, but it's not.
It's not made up. And this is how, I've said it before, but this is how this show came about, was those conversations for
Yes.
both of us.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way sometimes.
Yeah.
I always know I'm going to enjoy coaching, yet it does feel like a hill when it's, 3 or 4 hours out,
Yeah.
or sometimes the night before, because I'm, for whatever reason. And then, of course, I get into it and I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it's just the commitment more than anything else.
Right.
Right.
I have to remember to not have anything over the time.
Love all the interactions. And like you say,
I just love it so much.
The engagement that happens.
Yes.
And the growth that you're seeing, which
it's like the world goes away.
the growth is something I wanted to spend a minute on here with this particular topic when we're talking about the hills.
Mm-hmm.
If you are doing everything except running the hills, then you're avoiding where growth opportunities are.
Yeah.
The growth opportunities are in the things that you're avoiding. And if every one of your Amazon sessions, and I'm going to call it a session, like when you get home from work and you're going to go source, or you're putting in time on the weekends, or whenever that is, middle of the night because you can't sleep, or that's when the kids finally went to bed, or whatever it is, that if your session, your Amazon session there starts with, I'm going to, your self-talk is anything but sourcing, or anything but prepping, or anything but the thing that you hate to do, then you're looking for the downhill. But remember, the downhills don't come until you go to the uphill.
Right.
Right? And
That's right.
Growth doesn't live on the downhill. Growth lives on the uphill.
Yes. Yeah. Downhill is the recovery. The uphill is and that's where you feel the reward. Right. That's where you feel proud and you've done something when you get up that hill.
So where I'm going to turn this next comes from a mentor of mine, but he was talking about this running thing, and he said, we are sort of preconditioned, programmed to think that the hills are in the way of the event, right? Mm-hmm. But really, the hills are the way.
Yeah.
Right? It's like
we can't just go around them because we'll never get the reward that's at the top of that hill.
Can't go around it.
Can't go around it. Yep. Six-year-old wisdom again.
Yeah, right.
You can't go around it. You can't go under it. Can't go over it. You got to go through it. That's just like a lion hunt.
So sourcing isn't in the way of you finding success in this business. Sourcing is the way of you finding success in this business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll all grow to love it like we do.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Now you were telling me this week about sort of the feeling that you get from a lot of your coaching clients where you are leading them in a certain direction, and I don't want to take it away.
So there was one particular client that I talked to today, and I've quoted him before. He's pretty wise in all things, and he's building a new foundation to his business. Not just a few weeks ago, he was in the Kickstart program, and he told me, now he's a coaching client of mine, and he told me in a session this week how the things that I was telling them in the Kickstart program, I would say, it's okay, we're just going to do this one time, don't overthink it, just get through this process one time, it will start working itself out. Can't find anything that I'm approved to sell. They're there. It's just going to take some effort. And so he says, now, just a few weeks later, I've been sending in shipments. I've been making sales. And guess what? Now I understand what you were saying. They are there. I just had to get to the other side. And this is kind of like, and I used this example when I was talking to him, kind of like when we decided to get our advanced degrees way later in life. So we we were in our 40s, right?
Yep.
And so I think I was actually close to 50 when I got mine, but we decided to get a master. You got an MBA and I got a master's degree. And I remember having the conversations after study sessions when both of us were learning from each other, and we kept saying, wow, I couldn't have done this when I was in my 20s, right out of college. I could have done it and checked the box, but I can actually apply it now. It means something to me now. It's actually solving problems that I have in my career already.
Mm-hmm.
And that was so much more valuable when we could understand how to apply it rather than just check the box. And I think that a lot of people try to get all the information and check the box and make sure they have their degree in Amazon before they get started.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't have anything to apply it to. So a lot of those concepts make no sense until they're actually in it and experiencing the problems that those things would solve, or experiencing the growth that those things would help them build. It makes a difference. So doing is absolutely the first step.
I think that's why I was drawn to the computer programming space right out of high school. And this is obviously back in the 1900s.
Back in the 1900s.
when a lot of my professors were still talking about punch cards.
Well, it was very, very new. Computer science was a degree that just didn't exist before that. That you were like one of the first.
No cap.
No cap.
Yeah. So, but because it was like the theory, the lecture, and then we actually got to go do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like it wasn't like I didn't feel like
build computers and
program
build programs.
At the time.
Yeah.
But it was unlike, let's say, psychology, where I couldn't go practice psychology while I was an undergrad, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I could go practice programming,
Mm-hmm.
and or I could go practice, building computers or building networks or whatever it was. I could go
You're scramble somebody's brains.
Yeah,
just a computer.
Right. Just the computer brain. That no wonder it took AI so long to come around. Yeah.
You kept scrambling the brains.
Yeah. Well, it did. One thing you said, and what I wrote down here was that a lot of times you get from people, and to paraphrase what this particular coaching client was saying to you, is, I can't see how this is going to work.
Yeah.
Right. I can't see how this is going to work, but you can't see it because you're on this side of the mountain.
And this is
the
what
hill.
I was saying in Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see how that makes sense. Right.
Right. I can't see how this is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But guess what?
I've been on the other side of that hill, not just with my business, but with several other people. I've been on the other side of the hill. I know what's on the other side of the hill. I know it's worth it. And I'm going to go with you. We're going to go together.
Mm-hmm.
And you will have a reward, I promise, if you get to the other side of the hill. But you got to attack the hill.
You got to attack the hill. That's right. Attack the hills. I like it. We're putting all these things sort of intertwining now.
Well, it kind of goes with what I tell people a lot of times is step one is step one. Now, a lot of people are taller than me, have longer legs than me, and they might be able to take 2, even 3 steps at a time, but they can't take 10 or 12. They think they can.
Yeah.
They try to get to that 10th step without taking step 1 and 2, but it's just not feasible. You're just not going to be able to do that one step at a time. How do you eat an elephant?
So you brought something up earlier that I had a question about.
Uh-oh.
So you were saying that this person was in the boot camp and then was in coaching. Mm-hmm. Is this how you recommend? Because you are hosting these boot camps right now. Do you think that what if someone just signed up for coaching, hadn't gone through the boot camp?
Well, I mean, a lot of times what's in the boot camp your coach can get for you, but one of the things you get, well, there are several things. Let's talk about a few of the things you get when you're in the boot camp that really set you up for a successful coaching. Things like you get to hear other people's questions. You get to see other people going through the same place that you are. Instead of, the one thing you don't get is working one-on-one with somebody, but you get kind of that camaraderie, that feeling that you're not alone in this. You're not the only person who started today, right? And then a lot of times these people stay friends. They stay together throughout their careers. They build a relationship there that is a great foundation for building an Amazon business. And then they're set up for coaching. Then they get a real understanding about, what would be valuable to have a one-on-one coach, because, they have a question and I cannot do one-on-one with them like I can when I'm coaching them.
Right.
There are a lot of benefits to that because, like you said, we all have our own little spin on it. And it kind of, the advice might change depending on what day it is or where you are in your process. Kickstart's the very, very beginning of that. It's just an introduction.
It does bring up another question I have for you, which is, it really is the beginning of the process. You are a coach, but to be clear, people are not getting the equivalent of one-on-one coaching from the boot camp.
Not at all. And they find that out really quickly in boot camp. Yeah, see, this is where, I have a lot of opportunities to say this is where a one-on-one coach could be so helpful.
Because you can actually, it's custom at that point, right? What you're covering in the boot camp, it's not custom.
It's not custom, right?
This is the first 4 steps for every single person who's going to launch an Amazon FBA business if they want a little guided tour on that. Everyone goes through this, but this is not coaching.
No, it's not the same as one-on-one coaching and someone walking the path with you. Now, that being said, I'm going to be there and answer questions and make sure that we get through that first step. But it is only the first step.
Right. It's just the first step.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for answering those questions on the spot because I didn't give you any heads up on this.
Well, I talk Kickstart a lot. I really, really enjoy doing that too. Just working with people in whatever manner in this community is just so enriching to me.
I'm thinking about like when we first met and we were dating and how I was trying to convey a vision to you when I was wooing you.
Wooing me with that 1973 Buick that...
Hey, now, you don't have to tell everyone about my boat.
The boat.
Yacht. The land yacht. Just the idea of like, here's this mountain. Because, we live in a very majestic place, right? There's mountains, gorgeous mountains all over the place. And sometimes you just want to get on them. You want to hike up them. You want to see what's up there. You want to experience that peak.
Yeah.
And what we realized throughout our journey together so far is that we've scaled a number of mountains. And what happens inevitably when we get to the top of that mountain is there's another mountain.
A whole bunch of more mountains. We go, now we can see those. We want those too.
Your perspective then is so plays into your life. And if you don't ever scale any of these challenging opportunities that are in front of you, you're not going to see the other myriad of opportunities that are out there for you. And so you got to run the hills.
You got to run the hills.
You got to get up those hills. The hills are the way. And once you get up there, you are going to see things that you're like, oh, I didn't even know that was an option. I didn't know that was an opportunity.
Didn't even occur to me to ask for that.
Right.
Right?
And then you get there, and you're like, okay, I'm charting a new course.
Yeah. Now I know how to get up a hill. Let's go try another one. Yeah.
This is what I see with coaching clients. Well, first of all, they come through the boot camp and they've got a whole different perspective after they get out of boot camp. And then as they're going through coaching, they get multiple different perspectives as their business is progressing. And then this is why we say start with replens, because it gives you such a great fundamental, practical application of Amazon FBA. So that then when you're going to go do something else, which usually happens, not that you'd ever necessarily stop doing your replens business, but if you were going to do wholesale or you're going to launch your own private label.
Add more strategies. Because diversity.
Right. Yeah. I kind of lost my train of thought there. But
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Since you brought up the land yacht.
Okay.
I want you to tell us what the quote is. And if you guys will stay tuned for just a couple minutes after that, I'm going to tell you the story of the day I fell in love with Brian Wilson.
Okay.
It's a short story. It happened quickly.
First of all, I didn't bring it up. You did.
Yeah. I still love the story, so I'm going to tell it anyway.
Okay. All right. So the quote this week comes to us from Hank Aaron.
Hank Aaron.
All-time baseball, great Hall of Famer. His quote is this: "You can only milk a cow for so long, and then you're left holding the pail." So at first I was like, what is he trying to say with that? Now, let's remember that Hank Aaron was a really good hitter of the baseball, right? He was a really good batter.
One of those home run kings.
He was like the home run king. Yeah. He was really good at hitting home runs.
He was the one, yeah.
but you're not always going to be in a situation where you can hit a home run.
Right.
So you have to be good at some other things. So don't be left holding the pail. Find out what else it is that you're good at, is the way I'm interpreting this, right?
Yeah.
So
mix it up. If they're constantly expecting that same thing, then you got to mix it up. You got to play the field sometimes. You got to play defense sometimes. It's part of the game.
You got to steal bases. You got to do the drills. You got
to do the drills.
Go to practice. You got to do all the things. You have to even take a day off sometimes, right?
Yes.
Especially in that
sometimes
sport when you're playing 162 games a season.
Yeah. That's a crazy sport.
You can, and so whatever it is that you're good at, you can only prep for so long before there's nothing left to prep.
Yeah.
Because you haven't sourced.
Exactly.
Right? You can only, if you're really good at handling customer satisfaction issues, you can only handle customer satisfaction issues for so long before
you don't have any customers
to satisfy, because you haven't done the other parts of your business. So make sure that you have this affinity for all parts of your business.
Seven core competencies.
Exactly right. Yeah. 7 core competencies, at least until you get scaled up and outsource those tasks.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well,
I'm a little nervous.
Everybody has, you've heard me tell this story a million times. Everybody has hung in with us, and we appreciate you. And hopefully you'll get a kick out of this story. When we were, in our late 20s, mid to late 20s, depending on which one of us we were, we started dating, and you were already in this multi-level marketing group, and I was right with you. You took me on a date, and one of our first dates, we came to Denver. We lived in Colorado Springs at the time. We came to Denver for a dinner, and it was a dinner where we were, dressed up and
fancy dinner.
A fancy dinner.
I was in a suit.
Yes. And we were supposed to, experience what it was like to have nice things and, kind of dream about that. And so the speaker was from Alaska. And he said he came into town and his wife wanted a fur coat. And he said, gosh, how many fur coats can you buy I bought her another fur coat. How many fur coats can you buy for a woman anyway? And we all laughed and we were chuckling, how that was. And I turned around and you were looking me dead in the eyes. And you stopped and you said, whatever it takes. In other words, whatever I needed to be happy, that's what you would do for me. I fell head over heels in love that moment. I have been in love ever since. And you have been worth everything.
How many fur coats do you have?
I don't have any fur coats, but I don't particularly care for fur.
Oh, okay. So
fur coats.
I didn't take fur coats.
I have lots of experiences, plenty of cruises and vacations and lovely, lovely times with you. So.
Yes, well, that was quite a magical night.
And then we got back in the boat where you had to put a towel over the seat was so torn up that you had to put a towel over it so it didn't snag my nylons.
Your nylons, yes. That's right.
Those were the early days, man. But we both had a vision, and we found each other, and we were able to enrich our vision together, and that's who we are, man.
We saw some mountains out there, and we said, "Let's go climb those."
We did. And we've been climbing mountains
ever since. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sweet. So. Thank you. Well. Okay, so what's your first step when you're going to climb some mountains in the Amazon business?
Oh, yes, go find some more ASINs.
We got to find some ASINs. Let's go find some more ASINs, everybody. We'll talk to y'all soon.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for joining us for today's episode. But I've got a guest that I want to bring on, actually a couple guests. Spend a couple minutes with Jeff Schick and Liam Modlin. They're our good friends from jeffschick.com, our resident experts on all things policy and legal when it comes to e-commerce, Amazon, Walmart. They cover the gamut. And I bring them on once a week or so to share some tips and insights that are very useful for the selling community. So what do you got for us this week, Jeff?
So what we're going to talk about is documentation. And I know we've talked about this before, but it's worth reiterating. And documentation is extremely important because if Amazon starts auditing your supply chain, the first thing they're going to ask for is documents. So what type of documents do you need to store? Well, your bank statements and credit card statements for sure. If you have employees that are doing purchasing for you, save their paychecks and W-2s so that you can prove that they're your employees if it ever gets asked. And then receipts, of course, receipts, order confirmations for OA, delivery confirmations for OA, shipping confirmations for OA. Yeah, anything that you receive, don't hit the delete button. Just, archive it or save it, just mark it as read, but don't delete, because we have had sellers get suspended and then they say, well, I operate an inbox zero. And what that means is they delete every email after they've read them. Well, that's great for OCD purposes. It's not great when Amazon asks for those emails and you can't prove it. So
Right.
that's why I always recommend, save everything, save every email. And then for, RA receipts, invest in a receipt scanner. They're cheap enough on eBay now that you can get one for, probably under $100 that's used, that will do what you're looking for. And it gives so much more quality when it comes to scanning the receipts. It also offers OCR text recognition, so you can search through them more easily. So can Amazon, they can search through it more easily as well. So, getting a professional receipt scanner, it's a couple dollar investment, but it pays dividends when it comes to account health concerns and providing receipts to Amazon for, either, reimbursements or account health purposes.
Excellent, excellent advice. So, Leah, let me ask you this. I'm a brand new seller. I just started. I've only had a few transactions. Do I need to worry about this stuff? Do I need to be collecting all this stuff?
I personally think anyone operating any type of business model needs to have as much documentation as possible. There have been various cases where we've included an additional piece of documentation that didn't seem to be particularly important. And that little bill of lading, that little delivery confirmation did seem to tip the scales. At several conferences, I've jokingly held up my phone. I'm like, look at my 300,000 message inbox. And like, yes, that's disturbing, especially to my mother. But most people, that would, throw their OCD into a tizzy. But if anybody ever needs to ask me anything about any email I ever got from a brand, whether it be marketing or related to my own orders, I can pull it up and show them. And if the worst were to come to happen to my account, then I can provide quite literally anything that you could possibly imagine to show my supply chain for anything that I've ordered, regardless of when I've ordered it. So yes, it's very important.
When in doubt, don't throw it out. There we go.
Right.
Save it, right? That's what your lawyer is telling you right now. And if you don't have these guys on retainer yet, jeffschick.com for a few dollars per month. They'll help you with all of your Amazon, Walmart, e-commerce, policy, and legal questions. If you get a weird document in the mail, you got a question, should I shop at this store or not? Should I save this document or not? Put these guys on your team. That's who we use on my team and many of the great leaders in our community as well. Jeff and Leah, thank you so much. Let's do this again next week. What do you say?
Sounds good.
All right. We'll talk to you then. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.